This video is sponsored by Incogni. Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and today we're going to talk about, talking about the game, which is Session 0. This is when the Game Master and the players all get together to discuss the campaign, lay the groundwork, house rules, expectations, and all that other fun stuff. That way, once the group finally gets together to start their first play session, all of them start off on the same page. The term Session 0 is debated as far as where that term came from. The oldest mention of it that I'm aware of was on an RPG.net forum post from 2003. There might be older ones out there, I don't know, but since then it's permeated through the hobby, becoming just a common term that lots of people use. And I love the term Session 0. It's one of those things where anyone who's been playing for a while, when they first encounter that term for the very first time, they instantly know what it means because, we'd all been doing that for years. Unfortunately, like with many terms that originated on the internet that are then filtered through decades and a few thousand interpretations, all conjoined together into some sort of single ungodly abomination, Session 0 has become its own monster. And as more and more new players enter the hobby and they all haven't figured out yet what Session 0 is, so they ask, hey, what's a Session 0? They're deluged with all these interpretations and baggage of not only what a Session 0 is, but what a Session 0 must be, all at once. Something with the breadth and depth and enormous gravity that the entire game hinges on it more than anything else in the entire universe. Not only that, Session 0 has simultaneously become a scapegoat for all the terrible and unforeseeable behaviors that, if not specifically addressed during the Session 0, is, completely okay to do, like a get-out-of-jail-free card, which only adds more and more bullet points of what the Session 0 now has to cover in the future to, prevent those specific situations from happening again. So while yes, the core idea behind Session 0s is great and something that I highly recommend, it's all about communication. What many people seem to believe that Session 0s entail and how they're performed, I don't feel all that stuff is necessary. That isn't how I do Session 0s myself, and I don't believe that most experienced gamers do Session 0s either. So that's what we're going to talk about, what many people believe Session 0s are, what they really are, and how I handle my own table's pre-campaign communication. Now this video is going to be system neutral, so it doesn't matter if you're playing D&D, Cyberpunk Red, Shadow Dart, Call of Cthulhu, or whatever else. The same general tips apply because this is all about communication and not mechanics. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, Incogni. Right now, data brokers are collecting your information, gathering addresses, date of birth, buying habits, political affiliations, everything they can. Then they're selling that to marketing companies, hiring managers, identity thieves, scammers, burglars, anyone they please. One result of this is getting lots of spam and robocalls, but the big threat are people's search sites, which can be easily accessed by harassers who got mad at you on the road one day, or maybe didn't like something that you said online and decide to come after you, or potential burglars are just scoping out a good home to rob. Now, while there are laws requiring that data brokers remove your information from their databases if you request them to, the problem is that there are hundreds of these broker companies out there, making it impossible for anyone to contact them all. This is where Incogni comes in. You simply make an account, give them permission to act on your behalf, then sit back as they go after brokers with your information and make them remove it, and then follow up with them to make sure that they do. So to help keep your data away from scammers and stalkers and identity thieves, while also cutting down on all your junk mail and robocalls, hit the link below and use the code SETHSCORE to get 60% off an annual plan with Incogni, and let them do the work for you. And now back to Session 0s. Okay, first things first, let's cover what Session 0 is, at least what it is in theory. The idea is that before a campaign, before any of the characters are rolled up and everyone starts playing, the Game Master and the players get together and go over all of this stuff to make sure that they've put everybody on the same page. This includes table rules, where do we meet, either physically or at someone's house, or do we meet online and using whichever virtual tabletop? And then when do we meet? Is this weekly or monthly or a set schedule, or maybe this changes every month depending on how everyone's schedule looks? How long are the sessions going to be? If we're meeting in person, are we handling all the food together, or is everyone just fending for themselves? What if someone can't make a game or they cancel last minute? Is alcohol okay to have? And all just the general stuff about the people playing the game. This is most often stuff that groups who haven't played together before need to go over first, versus what established groups that have been playing together a while and they're simply starting off a new campaign together, they really don't need to go over all this again. Then there's also house rules. Are there any forbidden classes or spells or special abilities abilities or supplement expansion books? Is this going to be rules as written game or a homegrown system? Are we allowing character versus character conflict here? Are there any off-limit subjects or things that the players don't want to have in the game? What old pet peeves does everybody have? Are there any things that the players are specifically wanting from this game, aka stars and wishes? How do we handle problems like disruptive players or cheating? Are cell phones okay for us to have? And can we go all murder hobo on the game? How do we handle the rules disagreements and the debates? Then there's the campaign primer, which is for the campaign itself. What is this world? What's the setting of it? Is it a Bronze Age, desert setting, post-apocalyptic fantasy world with dragons and castles alongside rusting skeletons of skyscrapers and motorways? Certain species maybe don't exist, like elves don't exist here. Magic users are hunted as abominations from the dominant church. Is there a certain pantheon of gods that gets worshipped here? Well, who is this pantheon of gods? Are we doing a specific theme with this campaign? Like all our characters are criminals, or all of our characters are dwarves, or pirates, or belong to a certain mercenary company or religious order? Is there a certain tone that we're going for with this campaign? Like, is it going to be gritty with death being very easy, or high roleplay with very little combat, or just whimsical and death not being a very likely possibility? Essentially, we're getting everyone on the same page as far as what to expect from this game, and then we're building all of our characters and everything toward that goal. Now, all of this is really just the tip of the iceberg as far as the different stuff that Session Zeros might cover. For example, this is a Session Zero checklist that's been on a D&D Reddit for 8 years, covering 89 individual talking points and 17 categories. It is 11 pages and over 6,000 words long. That is more than twice as long as the script for this video. That only comes at 2,500 words. And for the last 8 years, this has been telling new D&D players everything that they must cover as a group before the first die is even rolled. And game masters and groups are trying to hold to the standard has led Session Zeros to being considered this painful slog. I've even been told of multiple groups who break this out across multiple Session Zeros, such as this guy who once tweeted me saying how they do 3 6-hour Session Zeros just to cover everything. That sounds like the most painful hell in the world to me. One friend of mine, he actually played in a group and did something like that where they had multiple Session Zeros, and he just kind of quietly left the game after having the second session with everybody where nobody played and they just talked about the game. That is crazy. Then, because Session Zeros are being approached as this hyper-detailed checklist of every conceivable situation like a legal contract that's set in stone, terrible people choose to interpret anything that's not covered in Session Zero as being totally okay to do. Go to any forum thread or YouTube video about bad player horror stories, and you'll quickly find comments stating how even the most ridiculous and unforeseeable behavior must be the game master's fault because they obviously hadn't covered everything in a Session Zero, because had they covered it in Session Zero, that behavior definitely wouldn't have happened. So guys, I've been thinking about it, and going forward, I think we should start enforcing carrying capacity. But during Session Zero, you said that you weren't concerned about carrying capacity. I assumed you'd keep it reasonable, but you're walking around with 7 rifles and a motorcycle engine on you. Well, it's your fault for not specifying it then, and you're a bad referee if you try to change it now. He's right. You didn't specify I couldn't carry 7 rifles, so that's on you. Session Zero demands it. I hadn't expected it to get used that way, and it's kind of hurting my fun. And are you clipping your toenails at the table? You never said I couldn't. He's right. You didn't. Ow. Sorry. You didn't say he couldn't clip his toenails at the table, so that's on you. Dude, get your nasty feet off the table. No, I can do whatever I What? You shot him? You can't be shooting other players, man. Well, no one said I couldn't during Session Zero. Dang, he's right. This is all your fault. We have to allow it now. The simple truth is that Session Zero cannot possibly cover every single variable that might arise while you're playing the game. No matter how many talking points across however many hours that you try, it's just simply impossible. Less so if the game is a system that no one at the table is fully familiar with yet. If the game master is new to a game and after a couple sessions they discover some rule or some upper level spell that they want to remove or change, you can't blame that game master for not saying ahead of time because they'd never encountered that before. They didn't didn't know that would be a problem before the campaign started. But even if it were possible, if you did a 4 hours of session of talking points, or no one's going to remember all that stuff, and most of the points we don't formally need to gather together to even talk about them in the first place. So while I love the term session zero, and I do strongly encourage that pre-game communication, one problem with the term session zero is the word session. It makes people think that you're all supposed to get together at one time, but that is not the case. The simple truth is that most of this can just be covered in a brief email or group chat on Discord or something like that. I'm an adult, my players are adults, and time is a premium for us because, between all the jobs and families and 100 other variables out there, scheduling a time where all of us can be together at the same place, that is a pretty limited commodity. So I'm not going to waste that by spending that time talking about playing the game instead of actually playing the game. So if we can figure out through chats or email or water cooler time at work, how it is we're going to schedule that time where we can hold a session zero and get all together, we can probably use the same means just to cover most of the same talking points that we would have been covering during a session zero. For example, let's say I wanted to play Star Wars. Which rule set? Well, West End Games 2nd edition. The theme is that instead of being involved in the war and the rebellion, we're going to play criminals, smugglers, and bounty hunters operating on the fringe. However, we'll also have a personal code or heroic streak that keeps them from devolving into villains or murder hobos. We'll have no Jedi and no Rhodian characters. The group needs to have the skills to be able to fly a ship between them. The ship will be provided as the goal of the first adventure, so we don't need to worry about the ship beforehand. All the characters will either know each other or know of each other prior to the first adventure. We'll meet every other Wednesday between 7 and 11 using this virtual tabletop, and the whole campaign is expected to last us maybe 6 months. Custom templates are allowed. Let the game master know if you want to use one. The GM is willing to do one-on-one character creation if requested. And then, very importantly, ask the players their thoughts and if they have any questions, because this is the beginning of the dialogue. Anything that the players are concerned or have questions about, things they might want to know, or if they're okay with, or if everybody's okay with, how things are going to be handled, this is the call to bring them up, and not just wait to see if the game master remembers to bring them up. This is the call of action that the players need to bring up anything that's going to be important to them. But with a brief email opening, we've hit all of the essentials here. Anything else that comes up, we'll address it either during the course of this pre-game conversation or as they arise, and we will discuss it like reasonable people. But for the time being, we have enough to start, a direction and a goal, and the players, they have time to think about this and make characters that they're happy about, and game masters have time to go over those characters, point out any potential problem areas that they might see with them, and, figure out a good way that they can fit these characters really well into the campaign. And then, once we all meet together and we're there together for the first time, we can get to playing and get to having fun right away. So for me and my group, this is how we do session zeros, or at least most of the time. Honestly, this all completely changes depending on a lot of factors involved. With Traveler, we do meet up together and make characters together. We also did the same thing with Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blades, and with Blade Runner. However, we also played during those same sessions. We made our characters, and then for the second half of that session, we got to play a short sort of introductory adventure with those characters, getting to know them a little bit and getting to know the system. Most recently, for Cthulhu by Gaslight, which I've been looking forward to this campaign forever, we actually finished up our Blade Runner game just really, really early. So I was like, hey, since we're all together already, you up for making some Gaslight characters? And they said yes, and I was all like, cool, I already figured this might happen, so I already printed everything up. And then we took advantage of a golden opportunity just to make our characters together and still have time before this first Gaslight session happens to iron out all the details and get these characters perfect. Now, as far as making characters, I've got all sorts of videos of making great characters and great backstories and keeping an open back and forth communication between the players and the game masters. That way we're all on the same page together. So there's no need to repeat all that stuff here, but definitely go check those videos out if you want to know more. Now, sometimes if it's a brand new system and I'm going to be bringing in everybody for that, or maybe if I'm bringing in a new player into an existing game that we're playing, I might schedule this to be as a one-on-one time with the players so we can craft a character together and so I can give them 100% of my attention session. So it is really situational how I go about doing session zeros. But my biggest problem that I have with the way that session zeros have been interpreted and presented over the years is this idea that session zeros are just one and done. Like we should just front load every imaginable contingency and topic at the very beginning, and then we're just simply done talking about it, and that nothing is ever going to change or be forgotten or simply get lost in the 100 other talking points that are all bringing up at the same time. And this is where that idea that anything that then goes wrong or wasn't specifically covered during that session zero time is now completely the game master's fault, now wide open to freely exploit. And that is just silly to me. Session zeros are the discussion before the game, but really that's just the start of the discussion. The discussion and the communication, they should not stop between everybody at the table. Before the games, during the game, communication should be open. And I personally like to imagine session zero as being all the spaces that we are not playing, whenever it is that we're looking forward to the next session. That time when we can do clarification or game maintenance or whatever else it is that we have time to focus on it without having to take away from any of our actual gaming playtime. So then when schedules do align, we can all get together and we can get to playing and having fun as fast as possible. In short, as long as your group is still active, session zero never ends. Hi, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews or how-tos or even more RPG philosophy, just hit that subscribe button. And a huge thank you to Acogni for sponsoring this video. Make sure you hit them up with the link below for a 60% off discount. Till next time, gamers, Excelsior! I still can't believe that you shot me. But did you die? So stop whining.